This is the Genius Generation podcast, and this is your host, the professor, the curator of dope shit.
Dope
you know
shit.
what I'm saying? How you like that new name?
I like that.
new handle.
I like it.
All right, I think it's befitting. You know what I'm saying? And before we go further, you can follow me at the Genius Generation podcast on Instagram and at the Professor 73 on Instagram, and on Twitter it's the Prof 73, the Prof 73 on Twitter. What's up, Saul?
Nothing, man. Hanging out with you. Gonna talk about some stuff today that's pretty interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it goes deep. I guess everything goes deep, but this subject particularly took me really deep in a lot of different directions. I didn't really, because I had an idea of where I was gonna go already.
Yeah.
But I went in a completely different direction that I'd anticipated. So I'm kind of excited about it.
All right. How was your drive over this morning?
Long, about an hour 45. So
What you listen to on the way?
I listened to. Actually, I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast because I like Joe Rogan. I think he's hilarious. But I listened to a couple podcasts. I listened to a little bit of The Breakfast Club. I jump around a lot, man. My brain goes so fast sometimes. I'll tell my phone to pull something else up, and I listen to a lot of stuff. So a lot of good stuff.
All right. Well, you know what it is. February. I think we started something last week that I like, the history, digging back into the history. And I get this information from the Chuck D's book, This Day in History, Hip Hop History. So we're going to go back to February, and we're going to go in chronological order today. Notable moments in hip hop history. February 12, 1991. Master P released his debut album, Get Away Clean. It was the first release on the now iconic No Limit Records label. And that took me back right there because I looked at No Limit didn't really blow up as we know it until 96.
Mm-hmm.
So he was hard at work 5 years in the making. Some people look at certain people as overnight success, and that proves, man, it took 5 years to get it really popular.
He was hustling in California at
That's
the
right.
time?
That's right, in the Bay Area, Richmond, California.
So that's a big deal to go from halfway across the U.S. just trying to promote your hustle. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have any major backing.
Yeah.
And you've got to make your way over there and make people like you and make people want to listen to what you got to say. Plus, he had I felt like like that song Saxophone we were talking about earlier. I feel like his cadence was like from the mid 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what, not that it was bad.
Yeah.
It's just that's kind of
Is that
feel
what
it had
was?
to me. Yeah.
And it just progressed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. February 19th, 1990. Tribe Called Quest releases the hit single Bonita Applebum on Jive Records, the second single from the album. The debut album went gold, and the name of the album was People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm. I think that album is ridiculously dope. I still listen to it.
I think the individuals are pretty dope.
Yeah.
Just when you go back and look how they came up and what they were doing when they were cutting school to go and play mixtape, do the mixes, taking the jazz influences and then putting it in there. It was almost like it was you like in the 90s when I think of like rock and roll, there was an alternative rock. Maybe some people would consider that like alternative hip hop because it didn't have the same type of samples and the feel. It was completely different. It kind of strode off on its own tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was like a form of alternative hip hop. I don't even know if that's okay to say, but that's when I listen to it, that's what I feel like it is because there's a lot of musical elements that are there that are not in. I'm assuming from what I've heard in those other hip hop genres or those types of songs that were big at the time. So. Do you think that's crazy to call it alternative?
No, actually not. Because if that's your opinion, and if it seemed like it was alternative at the time, I think you would grow to appreciate it now. Because what seemed alternative now just might be something you have an ear for, and you're expert.
yeah. My expert ear. That's right.
Getting over something. Sorry about that. All right. February 22nd, 1990. Above the Law from Pomona, California, released their debut album, Living Like Hustlers, on Ruthless Records, Eazy-E's Ruthless Records. And that was Code 187, also known as Hutch, who was the creator of G-Funk. I think we talked about that earlier.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
KMG, DJ Total Chaos, and Go Mac. Some of their songs were Untouchable, Murder Rap, and the last song.
Murder Rap. When I heard Murder Rap, I instantly thought of Quincy Jones because I don't even know if you're supposed to say it, but there's an element of murder rap that sounds just like a track called Ironside from Quincy Jones that Quincy Jones produced. Okay. And it's got that wee, right over and over. And the reason I thought of that is because I like the movie Kill Bill. Yeah. And anytime any tension gets really high, that's the track, that's the score that comes on. And I instantly knew, I was like, that is from Ironside. It's a sample from Quincy. Yeah. And because I'd heard it in the documentary, and then I'd seen it through Kill Bill. Another way that I identified murder rap was there's a game. If there's any gamers that would happen to hear it, right? Yeah. Grand Theft Auto. There is a radio station on Grand Theft Auto San Andreas that plays murder rap on like Los Santos radio or something like that. Okay. And I thought it was funny because they brought it back into a completely different generation and dynamic or demographic that probably would have never, connected the two. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those people that was able to connect it. I thought it was cool,
So out of
all that shit.
So that one sound, you got all that out of that one sound.
Out of that one sound, that's right. And I was like, that's really fucking cool, man. Yeah. I don't know how many people would put those two things together, but I was one of them. Yeah. So that made me feel kind of good about my aspiration to learn something different.
That's a trip you said that because, very rarely do you meet somebody like you who can listen to music like you and get excited over something about a sound. It's like the other day when the other day I called you and I said, shit, man, listen to Woodwill. I was listening to Pimp C Woodwill, and I got excited over a tambourine.
A tambourine.
I was like, damn, you hear that shit? I listened to it. It's a tambourine and like a cymbal, a cymbal. That's the kind of shit get excited over, man. So a lot of people don't understand it, but it's certain stuff that sticks out in my ear right now.
Your appreciation is going to vary based on your perspective. You know what I mean? If you've seen and heard a lot of things, then you're going to be able to see other things, connect the dots, and appreciate it more. So whatever. Yeah.
All right. February 23rd, 1988, Biz Markie releases his debut album, Going Off on Cold Chillin'. Some of the songs were Vapors, Make the Music, Pickin' Boogers, and Nobody Beats the Biz. What you think about Pickin' Boogers?
I thought it was interesting that Big Daddy Kane co-wrote it. Mm-hmm. I thought it was funny that he was able to make something so silly relevant in a song. Right. Pick my boogers every day. Everybody does it. Who would have thought that you would be able to make something like that? Yeah. Into a song that was relevant.
Well, that's another thing that's dope about hip-hop that we talk all the time. You don't have to be pretty much known as a lyrical genius, a lyrical wizard. You don't even have to be a rapper. You don't have to be a DJ. Your name could be just based on your personality, and I think that's how Biz Markie became a legend. His album was dope, but he's known more for antics, and he's DJ now. Yeah.
Beatboxing.
Yeah. So Biz Markie was dope, and I think he's a legend. There was a young guy tried to argue with me a few years ago that told me he wasn't, But,
I mean, how can you say that? If you are basing your opinion off somebody's success or your idea of what their success is, and not actually identifying what their contribution was. Right. If he lived his life a certain way and it was, hip hop, and just because he wasn't super successful, if he didn't make trillions of dollars, if that's your idea of success, and he didn't achieve that goal, that doesn't mean that he's not hip hop. It doesn't mean he's not a legend. You know, if you can live a lifestyle like that and live the lifestyle, because I can't count how many times I've heard somebody say that, hip hop is a culture. It's not just music, it's a whole lifestyle. It's the way you think, the way you act, the way you walk. Yeah. All these different things that it's so crazy to think, because my mind has never, I don't know if it ever has been in that place to where I can say, oh, this is 100% hip hop, because my influences are so broad, So I don't think you could say, I wouldn't have argued with them. I'd have been like, whatever. Some people they already think what they're going to think, and you're not going to change their mind. But I think anybody that's made major contributions, been influential to people,
And that's what I'm going through this thing right now, where, in my younger days, we used the word dope. Somebody's dope, somebody's whack. We used to base that on their lyrical ability, whack. I've gotten far past that now to where I can see value if you contributed to this culture in any way. I'm not saying like I said, I'm not saying everybody's a lyrical genius, but man, if you contributed to this culture some kind of way positively and didn't take away from it, I think you dope pretty much. You know, if you were able to sell records or do whatever you did and you didn't steal away from this culture, you added value to it. I'm like, I think that shit is dope.
Sometimes those pigeons change into vultures.
All right. Let me see. What else we got? Oh, I think this is last. Yeah, last but not least. February 26, 1991. LL Cool J releases the hit single Mama Said Knock You Out from the album of the same name, produced by Marley Marl, gold-selling, multi-platinum, Grammy-winning. And this song is included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shape rock and roll. And,
we were talking about Biz Markie earlier.
Yes, sir.
The Juice Crew.
Yeah.
Marley Marl, right?
Yeah.
And who helped produce this song? Who put in work on this song?
Well, this is Marley that produced the album.
That's right.
And he put L back in the game. You know, after Walking with a Panther, a lot of people was feeling a certain way about it.
Yeah, kind of like he was on a down slope, right? Like people were like, "Where'd he go? What's he doing? Stuff's kind of whack."
Yeah,
you know,
a lot of people was feeling that way with the Walking with a Panther. I listened to the album recently too, and in retrospect, it doesn't sound as bad as some people might have thought back then. I listened to it not
their
long
bar
ago.
might have been way up here, you
Yeah.
know, when they heard it.
Yeah.
But I thought the idea behind Mama Said Knock You Out, I think, was from his grandmother, right? Told him to knock out the critics.
Yeah, that's
Knock
the
out the
story
critics.
that's the story that he told.
Knock out the critics, and
yeah,
you know, he did, right?
Yeah. So I guess that was twofold, because on the video he was knocking somebody's ass out. So
that's right. I think George Clinton was in on that too.
George Clinton.
Apparently, he helped. He did something with it.
I gotta look into that.
Yeah, you should.
Before they dropped that album, one thing I can remember, like I said, his career didn't seem like it was so hot, but when Marley stepped in and they did the remix for Jingling Baby before the album came out, and that was a summer for us. I think it was a spring in 1990 to set the stage for the album to come later. And I can remember when that album first dropped, I remember the radio station. I'm pretty sure they don't do it now. The radio station debuted, played the whole album. They had so many hits on that album. It was ridiculous, man.
They used to do that here in Atlanta on radio stations. They would play the whole album.
Oh, really?
Man, this is a long time ago, but I remember when they played. I think one of the local radio stations played "Still Standing" or something like that. The whole album through. It's kind of like a listening deal. You could just you listen to the whole album on the radio.
Yeah, I remember them days. I wish they would bring them days back, man.
Shoot, me too.
All right, and that is hip hop history for February. Feeling pretty good about it. You know, I don't really like to talk about, like we talked about politics last week. I don't really like to talk about. I just want to talk history, hip hop culture. But we have, over the last few weeks, the issues of fashion that's come about with Gucci and Prada, stuff like that. I don't really want to talk about it from a current event standpoint. I want to go back in history, because what I would like to start off by saying is that we shouldn't have been wearing this shit in the first place.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I feel the same way.
Yeah. So,
hip
hop and fashion. What is your earliest moments of how fashion and hip hop go together?
Back in the day, I had a very diverse group of friends and people that I hung out with.
Right.
So I remember things like Carl Kanai and Iche, Mecca. I had a buddy that bought me a FUBU hat, an orange one I wore forever.
Right.
Not even thinking about anything about where it came from, what it was. I was just basically brand loyal. There was no real thought that was put into it. It was just, you know, this is what my buddies wear. I'm obviously a little bit different. I want to fit in, because I think everybody wants to be accepted on some level. And, you know, that's just what I did. So I would basically I was very easily influenced as far as wanting to be accepted, because I moved around a lot, you know. And then when I kind of found a core group of friends that would, you know, let me be whoever I wanted to be, essentially. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, I'll wear that. I don't care. You know, it must be good because it's $90 for this T-shirt. Right. You know. Right. You know, stuff like that. Yeah. And then I had I wish I would have came into my own way earlier, and the way I think now is, you know, brand loyalty is, I don't want to be a billboard. You know, one. Yeah, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
If you feel like you need to, you know, pose your status, you know, if it's a status issue or you need that to advance your career, because obviously one dynamic that works for hip hop artists is, or anybody in general, is to establish a certain status. And if that helps you advance your agenda on your status, then I don't guess I can hate you for it. You know, I don't hate you for it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I feel is a priority to me. It's not important to me.
Right.
So, but yeah, early days, I think there was South Pole, what is it, Gerbeau, right?
Yeah.
Like I've still got some Gerbeau jeans.
Yeah.
So,
Gerbeau was tight. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I can't really remember anything specifically because I didn't have any money. You know what I mean? I didn't have any money. You know, like a lot of clothes I got were like stuff that my friends would buy me. I wouldn't ask them to, you know, and I was obviously grateful, you know, because I had a group of friends that thought enough about me, especially at that age, man, because kids are assholes, you know what I mean? For me to have a core group of friends that would, you know, maybe be sympathetic or compassionate, whatever you call it, they thought of me, and that was a huge gesture, man, and I think it helped shape, you know, the way I think today.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think I have to go back to the age maybe I was always into hip hop culture from an early age, but I think the fashion part came when I started. You know, when you're a teenager, you start parents buying you clothes, whatever. And you start you want more than that. You starting to see the trends take shape or whatever. So man, I think when I was able to finally get me a little money on my own, you know, when I was 16, something we hit a little lick, like I was saying, and the first thought came to mind was, shit, I got money to get fresh for the weekend now. For the concert was coming up. This was in New Orleans, the New Orleans Superdome. It was a Public Enemy, Heavy D. I think it was Latifah, Digital Underground, Kid and Play. And we had to get fresh for the concert. Me and the crew, we had a couple thousand.
Brand new.
Yeah. The next day, this was in the summer, and I remember the next day, buddies picked me up I was in summer school, picked me up from school. We headed downtown. We got fresh polos, jabots, Bally's. I'm talking gold slugs. You know, we're going to talk about the grills in hip-hop one day. We were getting fresh for the weekend. So I think that weekend, man, and that started it right there. That started it right there for me. But as a teenager, when I was coming up, like I was saying earlier, man, New Orleans was so fly. This was like late 80s. I think Slick Rick had a big influence in that. They loved Slick Rick at the time out there. Had the gold. And I remember seeing one time, but it probably wasn't a conscious effort, but as far as hip-hop's concerned, hip-hop made shit look fly without having to spend exorbitant amounts of money.
That's right.
Slick Rick, I remember seeing something he had on his grandmother's fur coat on the video for Teenage Love. Borrowed it for the video. And was, you know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right. I 100% believe that hip-hop culture makes these things badass.
Yeah, it's the energy behind it.
That's right, because I'm a firm believer of it's not what you wear, it's how you wear it. I think it's the energy you put off yourself. Like, I'm confident, I'm whatever positive aspects that you bring to the table. Yeah, I think that it's not what you wear, it's how you wear it. And I sincerely believe, like, major luxury brands are brought up and they're put on a pedestal because of the hip hop community's contribution. I really think that, because if you look a lot of artists now, they're basically these giant commercials for these luxury brands, and it's hard for me to believe that anybody is paying them to say what they're paying. You know, because I think if that relationship dynamic existed where they would be willing to pay somebody, I think the whole ideology of the fashion industry would be different. The relationships between artists and major fashion conglomerates, I think it would be different. Right. But it's not, because why would a major luxury fashion company pay money to an artist that's already going to promote them for free? Right. You know, and it kind of irks me a little bit, because when I think about it, I almost feel like they are holding themselves to a standard, and they are implementing this doctrine to an artist or to a community or a demographic that, excuse me, that is saying, we are up here, we are at a higher bar, you should shoot to be up here with us, right? That's how I kind of feel it. And in a way, I think it creates the mindset for some people or some communities that we are shooting up here because status is important. So if they want to be something or be somebody, they need to get up here versus, they need to aspire to be, on the same level as these people, which in reality comes back to what we were talking about, knowing your self-worth, you know, you're the reason that these people are making millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars a year because you are putting them on the front line for free. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way I think. It might not be right, but I really think I think that's an accurate portrayal of how those relationships work in between, basically with people with an insane amount of money and, people that are maybe not having an insane amount of money, because it's not realistic for me to go buy a $800 Givenchy sweater, or it's not realistic for me, so I can see how you could easily be sucked into that, because as an adolescent I was, sucked into that idea of my worth being equal to what I'm wearing. Yeah. And not the truth.
That all sounds good theoretically, but something tangibly we can put our hands on, take it back to the early beginnings. Have you seen Rubble Kings, the documentary Rubble Kings, where they spoke about the gang culture in New York City or in the Bronx in the 70s, and how when hip hop came out of gang culture, all these different gangs, and the guys decided, shit, when it comes down to, we all in a place of peace now, with all these women around, we gotta take this shit off and get fresh, and that's where it came from. So as much as I like to be a toxic, use my toxic masculinity right now, and say that hip hop is very masculine, it's a masculine sport, it needed the feminine energy behind it to go, because that's what it was about. Shit, they just had to get fly for the women. They to get on the mic, to get on the mic and rhyme. They wanted to get fly for the women. It was all about getting the women. So, and I think it still came up to a certain point where maybe I want to say 15 years ago. Yeah, I want to say maybe 15 years ago, because I started to see things change. Where it was a picture, I don't know if it was in magazines or some online publication, but it was pictures circulating where fashion shows, and I never forget, it was the first one they start showing a lot, that in the future this is what hip hop is going to be. This black dude walking the catwalk with a floral skirt on. Now, serious, a floral skirt. And in my mind, I'm thinking, nah, this should have never happened. This maybe 15 years ago, and that shit has surpassed that. Far beyond that. Where do you think? Where do you think that came from?
I think it came from somebody planting a seed in somebody's head and saying, "This is where you need to be. This is where you need your status to be." And then people with influence and money, that ideology trickles down, right?
Let me chime in right here, because you said status. My opinion, because I've heard him speak on it, so I'm gonna speak on it too. You look at Uptown Records, Andre Harrell and Puffy, they always said they wanted to aspire to a certain lifestyle. Def Jam was harder, but Uptown Records, they want to project a lifestyle. And I think that's where it started.
People of influence, people of money.
Yeah.
They project a certain lifestyle, like this is the way to be, and people look up to people, unfortunately, that have money and have status, so they're going to want to be like it. It's influence. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. It's influence, but it was also non-realistic.
Right. It's not realistic at all. It's not realistic at all. Even for artists that are, rich, that have, 5 million in the bank, 10 million in the bank, whatever. And these artists are going, like we talked about earlier, to these catwalks, to these fashion shows. Yeah. Right? And obviously not naming names, but if you look at certain major artists that have major deals, that are doing well, that are in the limelight, and you see them sitting at these fashion shows, and for whatever reason, the previous 10 pictures you saw on Instagram, right, they're wilding out. Right? But on this picture, they've got their hand on their chin, and they're looking up at it, like there's something to really, really appreciate in what they're seeing.
Yeah.
You know, that's not. No. I can't say whether it is or isn't. Hip hop, but my gut, my feeling is like, I don't. I think you're just trying to imitate something that somebody's telling you to imitate.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong
Yeah.
because I guess there's a lot of imitation across the board or replication or, like fashion is one of those things that in my idea in hip hop culture would be the same ideas that people had when they started sampling music. You sample music and then you change it, you loop it, you spin it, you put in the breaks, whatever you're doing. Fashion, if you take that mentality of we talk about living a hip hop lifestyle type culture, I think in my head, you take that principle and then you apply it to fashion, right? And then you can, if you like something from whoever, whatever designer there is, you take it yourself, you take your idea from it and you apply it to a new item. Whether it's clothes, like we were talking about Dapper Dan, right? He kind of took his stuff and he put his spin on everything. And I think that idea of making music, you can take it and you apply that dynamic to making clothes or whatever. I think when people say that it's a lifestyle, it's the way you think, it's how you act, it's how you walk. Like as much as I want to fully encompass that, it's a little more difficult for me. But I think there's certain fundamentals that are easy to identify. And take those principles and apply it to things such as fashion and not being, like we talked about, the other week, a blind follower, having blind loyalty, you know, and you take those principles and you can say, I can appreciate this for this. If that's the type of culture that you want to support, then, it's up to us or it's up to people to identify those principles that are congruent with, living that type of lifestyle, that culture. But, sorry. That was a long tangent off a really simple question. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me get your opinion on how you think it was. Well, maybe you just answered that on how it was infiltrated. How did hip hop, fashion, culture, and fashion get infiltrated?
Oh, I think it was status.
Just status, huh?
I think naturally any group of people wants to be accepted, and we always want to aim higher than what we are, right? But having somebody tell us this is higher than what you are, this is where you need to be, in this area of life, and not developing your own idea of what a higher you is. You see this status and then you get tunnel vision and maybe you shoot for it, or maybe it's just simple as the people that we look up to, that we see in media have a lot of money and we respect them, and we maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe it really is just as simple as money. Like we follow the money. Are we following money?
Well, there were some pretty prominent designers with brands in the 90s. Well, going back to, I'm going to go back to the early 90s. At the time, maybe 91, the hottest rap act in the country was Naughty by Nature. At the time, they launched the T-shirts, the Naughty by Nature T-shirts. You can order them, open the tape cover or the CD cover. You can order your Naughty by Nature T-shirt like that. That really did. And of course, Wu Wear, the Wu-Tang, the T-shirt craze the Wu-Tang came with. You had Walker Wear, Cross Colors, Carl Kanai, Fubu, even a little later, No Limit Clothing. But you had all these, and I think people don't give enough credit to hip hop, because if you have it in your mindset that, okay, Cross Colors, I had Cross Colors.
I did too.
They were colorful, and if you think in your mind, okay, well, at 30, I wasn't gonna be wearing that.
Right.
You're not giving them enough credit to think, the designers and hip hop. You're not giving enough credit to think, okay, well, maybe they would have evolved. It's just as we're aging, their designs would have aged with us. We were gonna be wearing that baggy ass jeans, baggy ass orange jeans, shit like that. So I think the problem comes. I think we abandoned all these designers who made their hate in hip hop culture. Now, we didn't have to. We're always abandoning. Why did it have to abandon them to aspire to a higher brand?
Maybe somebody came in and had a bigger influence because of money, and people are influenced by money. Could that be it?
I think it's simpler than that. I think it's just too damn trendy.
Trendy.
Yeah.
Probably is.
But here we are 20 some odd years later. we're like
Full
this
circle.
now. Buy black designers.
Mm-hmm.
Where were these same people the last 20 years?
I agree. I 100% agree. But dynamic, doctrine, influence, people aspiring to be something maybe they shouldn't be, that's not congruent with their circumstance in life.
The same people that are now shunning Dapper Dan, where were you supporting him over the last 20 years? After his store got raided, were you supporting him throughout this whole time? So now you step back in the picture and you tell other people, boycott him. He should quit his job. You know what I'm saying? The whole time
being an originator, right?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, just like with anything else, man, I think people are just wishy-washy. Nobody's loyal. And I just think that's...
So do you think all this current controversy that's going on with these luxury groups, do you think it's going to be something that just goes back to whatever in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months?
I have my own spin on it, and I'm going to tell you this because I think about everything deeper than what it seems like. Maybe I overthink stuff sometimes, but I've seen the ads. Which was it? The Gucci that had the mask or whatever. I saw it.
Turtleneck.
I looked at it and it doesn't even look real. It looks Photoshop.
Photoshop.
And second, I'm like, who would put out? Gucci wouldn't even put that out for. That's what who would you see walking down the street with that on?
Nobody.
So I'm like,
nobody in their right mind would wear that anywhere at any time.
Is this a publicity stunt to just get rid of?
I don't know. I think
what's become a demographic.
You say you think they don't want certain people to wear this brand of clothing? Is that what
right.
you're thinking?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think it is a publicity stunt to get people not to buy it.
I'm not going to insult their intelligence and give them credit for not knowing. Everybody knows what those symbols.
Yeah, there's
everybody
no way.
knows what those symbols
mean. Any major corporation, it goes through 1,000 checks and balances. They have PR people that probably make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
And if you had a PR person that looked at anything that could be so easily and obviously controversial and flat out wrong, they should be fired. But you don't hear about that stuff because, and honestly, they don't care. Because
they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
Because they've got the people that are buying that stuff is not us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The people that are going to buy it are going to be like, I don't care. I like it because it's the best. Why is it the best?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's made of cotton. I don't, you know.
And the bottom line is what I started the show with. You shouldn't have been wearing the shit in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. For me, especially because 90% of the world, 90% of the United States shouldn't be wearing it because we don't hold, but 10% of the wealth. Yeah. So it doesn't. I can't not buy something I already don't buy. Yeah. I'm not going to buy because I'm not brand loyal like that anymore. For whatever reason, in my head, it doesn't make sense to be like that. I've got other things in my life that I would rather put my energy or my finances towards. I don't care about. Maybe if I had $100 million. Yeah. Maybe it would escalate some, but I don't. I've had a lot more money than I've got right now, and I've never been, I don't want to call it frivolous because I don't want to talk about people that do buy that stuff bad, but in my head it's frivolous. To me, it's my definition of frivolous. It's my experience that makes me think that it doesn't make sense. Right. So,
I think it just at the end of the day it came down. I think it came down to publicity stunts. And some people say that even bad publicity is good publicity. I just think that's what it came down to, and we fell for it like we do all the time.
It's shoved down our throat.
Yeah. And, just acting off emotions and calling so-and-so this and so-and-so that. That shit wasn't called for.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
maybe somebody should have, picked up the telephone and been like, what do you mean by this? Or do you really understand what you're saying? Or do you understand do you see the big picture or anything like that? But I agree, man. It's a gutsy move to you put somebody on blast that quick, on a platform as big as some people have, you know,
without looking deeply further into the matter. You know what I'm saying? All right, this is the Professor, and this is the Genius Generation podcast. I'm sitting here with SaulGravy. Let's talk about a few of the trends throughout history. We could go in depth about some, or you could just want to rabble off some names.
The first thing I think about is probably a really prominent one is Run DMC and Adidas.
And what they did with Adidas, yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah, it went global.
It went global.
Yeah.
Somebody was smart enough as a brand ambassador to say, look at these guys, because they've got all these people, I don't want to say blindly looking at it, but screaming my Adidas.
Yeah.
Right? That's a massive amount of influence, because if there's 10,000 people listening, they could buy 10,000 pairs of shoes or sweaters or whatever, you know.
And they brought the culture out of the era of the leather, the spikes, the raccoon hat. You know, the raccoon hats, the fur, and all that. Feather. Yeah. So when we saw the images, and at the time, hip hop, to see anything that was hip hop culture wasn't readily available at the snap of a finger at your fingertips. So you had to wait on the weekend for Soul Train or for a video show. So when you did see them, what we saw Run DMC wearing was something that was attainable to us. You can go to any store. Right. You didn't have to go overseas. You could get a pair of Adidas.
Get you some shell toes anywhere you want, right?
You could do it, man. You know what I'm saying? What other ones you got?
I think of Polo. I think it was a big one that we kind of stepped over, but that we skipped earlier. But Polo was obviously massive influence, because you know, Raekwon, what is it called, the Snow Beach,
on Can It All Be So Simple video, the Wu-Tang video,
where he's got the red, the green, the yellow, that big, I think it's called Snow Beach or something,
and
like
he had
that.
the Snow Beach, I remember
Snow
that.
Beach Polo, right? And then it was getting exploded, apparently, you know, during that time, and everybody, like I was telling you earlier, I spoke to a couple of guys yesterday that he was born in Dominican Republic, moved to Trinidad, then he moved to Brooklyn, and now he lives here. And you know, it's a question I still need answered. Why does everybody come down here? Like, is it good? I don't know if it's good. I'm just wondering. But
yeah.
And he was. I think it was, somebody corrected me earlier. It's Flatbush Avenue, or I guess it's a section of Brooklyn, if I think I'm right. Where he would talk about people would just come down there in all their polo gear and take pictures and flex or whatever in front of everybody. Yeah. I thought that was cool. And Ralph Lauren is apparently from New York also. It was something that he started there. You know, another one we didn't talk about was Tommy Hilfiger. Right. And Tommy Hilfiger being one of those, you know, fashion companies that started, you know, advertising or catering to a hip-hop demographic. And I know there was some controversy later on. I don't exactly know what it was, because I've heard it was taken out of context, and I've heard it was just outright wrong. I really don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that there's a lot of artists from the 90s that would talk about, you know, Tommy Hilfiger and Andy Hilfiger, which I guess is his brother, that would show up to the clubs, to the events, you know, to the concerts, and they would, you know, actively promote their gear, and, you know, with people from the hip hop community. And, you know, whether he was doing it selfishly just because he wanted money, or he felt accepted, or it was just a good vibe. Obviously, it was a decent vibe because people were clinging onto it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it was, I think at the time, it was Grand Poobah who was really putting the name Hilfiger out there. Jabot's hanging baggy, Hilfiger on the top, baggy. Knapsack on the back. That's just the flavor hop. Grand Poobah was putting it out there at the time, and I think he got a bunch of clothes from Hilfiger for that. I don't think they were handing out multi-million-dollar checks for branding at that time.
Yeah, I don't think they were paying anybody to do it.
Right.
You know, like Polo did later, but either way it goes, they were putting money into the culture for sure, because they were sponsoring events, they were giving away clothes. I guess at some point in time it was just a marketing ploy that, you know, that helped them generate more revenue.
Yeah.
Either way it goes, it was somebody giving something to somebody else, and depending on how you look at it, there's a positive characteristic there.
Yeah.
You know? I like to think about like fashion throughout. We were talking about like the snapbacks, NWA with snapback hats, right? They all had the Raiders snapbacks, you know what I mean? The black hats with the Raiders logo on the front.
One time, you hear? I think it was on one of Too Short songs when Ice Cube said, "I don't wear too much gold because it's tacky. I bust a Raiders hat, T-shirt, and some khakis." You know, that shit was fly back then. And how much did that outfit cost?
I don't know, $40.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That shit was dope.
That's right.
That shit was
right.
dope. Yeah, and for me, I remember certain brands in hip hop going back to the '80s, like Troop. There was a brand called Troop. I think LL had his own Troop shoe. There was a Troop shop downtown New Orleans on Canal Street. So it took off for a minute. I don't know what happened to him, but LL had his own Troop shoe at the time. Of course, Adidas, as you said.
Well, you said LL Kango, right?
The Kango. Yeah, we made stuff. Because Kango been around before.
Fuzzy Kango.
Kango, the brand was around before hip-hop. You know what I'm saying? But damn, we made it look fly. Shit, it don't even have to be Kango. It could be a regular fisherman hat.
That's right.
EP&D threw on a fisherman hat. They call them bucket hats now, but I still got a fisherman hat. And we just knew how to wear it a certain way. You know what I'm saying? What else did you mention earlier? The white tee craze that went through hip hop.
Yeah, southern, I guess southern fashion trends. The 5XL shirts when you wear extra small. You know what I mean? And you wear a size 36 waist, but you wearing a 48.
That's
waist,
historic, but I wasn't necessarily proud of that era.
Yeah, I did it. you know what I mean? I did it, to an extent. I would wear massively large clothes, massively large clothes, because that was, if you consider my age, that was the time where I was out acting a fool, and I was very impressionable. I just put on whatever, but I thought I was dope looking, and whatever. It's not what you wear, it's how you wear it. You know what I mean?
How many X's did you go up in?
Shit, 3X, 4X, something like that.
That's what's up.
And you'd hit the big and tall, and I'm already 5 foot even, so shit was hanging down to my knees, so whatever, whatever. But yeah, the big T's,
Yeah.
Ding, ding.
And actually, I think that came. Now that I think about it, the white tees came through a few times because you also had in the early '90s, you had the West Coast gangster rap, the white tees and the Dickies.
Dickies, I don't say talk about Dickies.
White tees, the Dickies, and the All Stars or whatever, and they had that. And then a little later in the '90s, you had the Hot Boy era with the white tees, and then it also came back around in the 2000s, as you said.
Well, even then, at the same time, you're having white tees and Dickies and All Stars. In the South here, you had white tees, Dickies, and Timberlands. It was kind of like merging New York and California together a little bit, and it kind of met. Kind of sort of in the middle. Yeah.
Well, you remember before, I don't know if you remember, but before people were really buying Timberlands, they had the high tech booth down here. Yes,
I remember high tech
to go. Yeah. Man. What else?
Army fatigue, man.
Fatigue.
Army fatigue was a big deal. I forgot about army fatigue, man.
Yeah.
People wearing like the olive drab, the camo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that was a big deal. Anything that was military related, seemed to be pretty hot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that wore camo, big camo pants and high tech boots.
Yeah. And you want to take that back to like the within a culture, a subculture, and camo. Take it back to the Magnolia projects in New Orleans, where you see a whole project taking a picture with camo. That shit was dope. And like we were talking earlier about a catwalk, the hip-hop catwalk wasn't at Fashion Week. The hip-hop catwalk was when you go to the club or you at the concert and you taking pictures with your boy and you posing. That was the catwalk.
That was the
catwalk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what other ones you got? Because I can think of another one, what they call Dope Man Nikes in the South, the Cortez.
Dope Man Nikes?
Dope Man Nikes.
No.
You're not familiar with those?
No, Air Force Ones.
Oh, you Air Force Ones a little later. Okay. See the Air Force white tees.
Just seen some Dope Man Nikes.
Oh,
yeah, them on. It's pretty dope.
All right, this is the Professor on the Genius Generation podcast, sitting there with SaulGravy. And where you think this fashion and hip hop is going, man? It seemed like it's.
I think going forward, I think there's going to be a lot more awareness about priorities, because one thing I think that is progressively happening is people are becoming more enlightened to what is good for a community.
Yeah.
Hopefully people are becoming less and less selfish, and they're able to see a bigger picture. Like you strengthen you know, you got 5 links in a chain, and then
Right.
and you see the economic structure in this link right here isn't as strong as it should be. I think people of all creeds, race, and everything are starting to realize that we are only as strong as every link in the chain. So I think people are going to be more aware of how they spend their money. Right. I really hope so, because I really believe that that's what's going to make the difference. And I think the difference starts in our mindset. And I think as people become more conscious and enlightened to the structure of how our society works as far as the dollar goes, I think people are going to becoming more aware, and they're going to start investing in certain areas of their local economy that is going to strengthen, you know, their economy. And if anybody has half a brain, they're going to see it's going to strengthen the economy and the fellowship of a whole.
Right.
I think advocates like Killer Mike, I say that shit all the time, but I really think he's got a really good perspective and handle on how to address these issues. Right. I don't think it's selfish at all. I don't think he gets anything from it. I mean, obviously he's got a Netflix deal, but you need a platform to put these ideas out, and it's not like he hasn't been putting in work.
Right.
You know, so I think that's where fashion's going to go.
Right.
It's going to go to where it makes sense for people.
I can see that, and I think with rap and rappers being the catalyst of what hip hop culture is, and I think it's still evolving to where you have veterans getting back in the game, making dope music.
Oh yeah.
So I think fashion is going to evolve just like the music is. It'll start getting back to.
It goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Back to basics. I mean, it's going to be organic.
Yeah. It'll be going back to basics. And I look forward to that day. You know what I'm
too.
saying? So this is the Genius Generation Podcast. I'm your professor.
SaulGravy.
And you'll never know the weight this culture carries unless you live the lifestyle. Be good. I'm out.